Now, as you know, I've spent a bit of time talking about and trying to talk to the so-called pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli protesters at our universities of late. In Australia, the most action has been at Sydney University. And just as this spread across universities in the US, other unis in Australia are following suit, with concerns about clashes between students at Melbourne University today. Now, what's confounded me from the outset is that many of these protesters are effectively supporting Hamas. They are barracking for the actions of a ruthlessly bloodthirsty Islamist extremist terrorism outfit, and they're pretending that they're actually some kind of freedom fighters. This is factually incorrect. It's intellectually vapid and it's morally repugnant. Yet at Sydney Uni, I couldn't get protesters to denounce Hamas or even demand the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Imagine not being able to find it in your heart to demand the release of hostages. Hostages like the Bibas family. The father believed to be murdered, the grandparents confirmed murdered, and the mother and two small boys taken hostage nearly 7 months ago. Feared dead, but nobody knows. What sort of person endorses this barbarity and cruelty? Well, on my drive home last night, I was listening to Andrew Bolt live, and I couldn't believe what he played us. An excerpt from ABC Radio earlier this week.
Well, I actually say that Hamas deserve our unconditional support, not because I agree with their strategy.
You can't condemn what Hamas did in October last year?
I will not condemn what Hamas did. We must be unconditional, but we must be critical also,
Luke?
right?
No, I did not condemn.
Two Australian National University students in Canberra actively supporting Hamas. This is a frightening sickness that's sweeping university campuses across the US and Australia. This is our young people either endorsing or turning a blind eye to the slaughter of men, women and children, the gut-wrenching slaughter of hundreds of young people just like themselves at that music festival on October the 7th last year. This is grotesque. And we showed you last night a social media post from the Australian Jewish Association showing Jews being blocked from universities in Germany by the Nazis in the 1930s, juxtaposed against Jewish students being blocked at American universities in the here and now. Well, so ignorant are the student protesters here in Australia, so willingly blind to history, facts, context, and the aims and methods of Hamas, and the facts of what transpired on October the 7th, that these students post a response that likens their protest today to the anti-Vietnam protests of the 1970s. They liken it to what they called American imperialism in the 1970s. They actually want to make this their Vietnam protest on campuses now. It just confirms my suspicion this is all about anti-US, anti-West activism rather than the real issues that the students don't even understand. But yet they're playing with very real dangers like anti-Semitism and Islamist extremism, not freedom fighting for the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people. One of the problems, I think, is that we in the media, constrained as we are by broadcasting codes and also by our desire not to offend viewers or distress survivors, we can't really show you what went on. Television and social media features daily reports of the impact of war on Gaza, the devastation and the casualties. Usually, by the way, the vision and the claims about what it shows and the statistics they use aren't verified. All that information coming out of Gaza is actually controlled by Hamas. Some media is more factual than others, of course, but the reason civilians have been killed is because Hamas targeted Israeli civilians repeatedly for decades, and because Hamas deliberately hide among their own civilians to launch ever more terrorist assaults. And while you see much of what Hamas wants you to see out of Gaza, you don't see the horror of October the 7th. That's cast into history. Some media ignore it, but all media, including here at Sky, we understandably have to sanitise that so that perhaps the university students don't even really know what they're defending. We can't really, in all good conscience, especially at this time of day, show you videos of hostages being kidnapped and beaten, their dead bodies being paraded in Gaza, the slaughtered bodies piled up at that music festival and in the kibbutzes and on the streets of southern Israel. Now, I've seen this. Young girls chased down and shot dead at point-blank range. I've seen families tormented in their own homes and then marched down the road before being slaughtered. I've seen Hamas terrorists boasting about their killings. But we can't show you this. We don't want to distress people, and we need to show respect for the victims. But then we have university students endorsing Hamas. Do they even know what they're doing? If they don't, they should learn and learn fast by reading at the very least. In the US, some Israel supporters hired a big screen and played some of the Hamas atrocities to the protesters. It was an inspired idea. It took away their excuse of ignorance, and it soon cleared those protesters out for a while at least. People need to know what this is about. There's no place for anyone in this country, surely, who supports Hamas, a listed terrorist organisation, an Islamist terrorist death cult that continues to hold innocent hostages and target innocent civilians. I put this badge on because it was given to me on the 6th anniversary of October the 7th, and I'll wear it until those hostages are freed. Yet Hamas wins support at our university campuses. Nothing could better demonstrate how our universities have failed at their most fundamental task, education.